Welcome to Money Monkey, a series of videos about money and all its uses. Today we're going to talk about why we need money. Can't we just all use something else? Quick caveat here, I have worked in financial services for over 25 years in senior management functions across the industry. These videos are designed to give you information and not advice. I want these videos to make you curious about money and give you some ideas on how best you can make it work for you. Everyone is different, and what works for me will not work for anyone else. This is not advice, it is simply a collection of thoughts that might help you be better informed about money, its uses, and the financial ecosystem. So why do we need money? The use of money can be broken down into four basic functions: as a medium of exchange, as a valuation tool, as a method of deferred payment, and as a store of wealth. So let's look at an example. Imagine a community that doesn't have money. Instead, they work together as a cooperative. This means that they don't need to do everything for themselves and they can specialize in their areas of expertise. They work together to provide their skills to the community, and in turn, the community provides those things that they cannot do for themselves. John is a farmer, Susan is a goat herd, Jane makes textiles, Fred is a lumberjack, Paul is a teacher, Carla is a miller, and Jeff is a baker. So the community has a discussion to determine their contributions and the fairness of it all. Paul teaches the children of the community, but Paul's job is only visible in hindsight, when the children have grown and begun producing within the community. Susan and Jane don't have children. Why should they provide goat meat and blankets to Paul? Fred doesn't really like bread. Why is he spending all day chopping wood and managing the forest for Goat's blanket and his children's education? He only needs a few blankets a year, and his child can learn to be a lumberjack from him. Goat meat can be boring, and there's other communities that have nachos. Fred likes nachos. Susan provides milk, meat, and wool from her goats. She's providing three products to both feed the community and keep them warm. Doesn't she deserve double or even triple what everyone else gets? Carla, Jeff, and John collectively only produce one product, and it takes three of them to do it. Is bread really that valuable, or should they only get a third portion for their collective contribution? There's lots of things that communities does not have and needs from outside. They can trade for these, but everyone within the community might hold different value for these outside resources. Is Paul willing to teach more children so that John can get a new barn? Does Jane want to work harder so that Jeff can acquire better yeast? How will Fred trade bread for nachos? In a society based on a barter system or collective sharing, there are many difficulties to overcome. So let's look at these problems through the lens of the use of money. As a medium of exchange, if one goat is worth 5 blankets, how do you make a deal for 3 blankets if you only have one goat? For that matter, who's to say that you would be willing to swap blankets for goats? You might want a knives or a hat. Being able to buy goods and services through a medium of exchange means we can get what we need without having to take unnecessary steps to get there. Valuation tools for goods or services. Even if I do want blankets, I think my goats, which are the best goats, by the way, are worth more than 5 blankets. I'd want at least 7 or 8. And can one of those blankets be a hat? Many jobs take years of training. How does an individual contribute to their community whilst they are training? Many jobs' effects are not visible on a day-to-day basis. Hopefully, we'll never notice the scientist who monitors the purity of drinking water. The only way we'll know is when they're not doing it well. Equally, some jobs are difficult to value. For example, a policeman. They can't create crime to solve. If there's no crime, have they done too good a job, or is there no job for them to do? Agreeing on a common value means everyone can achieve fair value for their contribution. Method of deferred payment. In a barter system, who funds the infrastructure? The roads, the hospitals, the ports, the schools, the government, and John's barn. Building something like infrastructure or homes can take a commitment longer term than one season or 1 year. Creating a mechanism for deferred payment allows the community to take on larger projects that will have longer term benefits. Deferred payment means John can get his barn and the community can dream bigger and make advancements that would otherwise take lifetimes to pursue. And finally, as a store of wealth. If I want something big like a house or a car, I need to save. If the goods that I create are perishable, then I need to trade for goods I can store until I have enough, at which point I flood the market with blankets and knives and the value diminishes. This is impractical. A good example of flooding the market with a perishable good is the actions of two onion traders in Chicago in the 1950s. Their actions led to the Onion Futures Act, a law that's still in force today. Being able to store my wealth in a form that is universally accepted, durable, movable, divisible, and reliable in that its manufacture is limited solves this problem. And so we return to using a tool to solve these issues. Money is not the perfect tool, but it does solve a lot of problems. But because we have money, through the medium of exchange, people have a far better way of making a cup of tea without trading knives for goats, for blankets, for nachos, for a teaspoon. People are able to specialize in a chosen field because we have a method of valuing their societal contribution. We are able to cure disease, sculpt beautiful artworks, build tall buildings, and possibly more ironically, work to solve the problems caused by money. Using deferred payment mechanisms, we can build houses, roads, hospitals, schools, and infrastructure, and John's barn. This leads to long-term and sustainable prosperity. And with the ability to store wealth, we can build and retain security for the future, whether it is putting our children through school or saving for retirement. Both society as a whole and individuals can build a safety net and increase their opportunities and options in life. Put simply, money is the least worst tool for the utility that it has. Money troubles. Money solves many problems and then creates a whole new problems all by itself. Aside from the supply and demand of money, its ability to be counterfeited, stolen, destroyed, and manipulated, there are some deeper, fundamental, and moral issues with the use of money. Perspiration does not equal compensation. Money means that jobs that have a greater impact on wealth tend to be valued more. Here's two good examples. In the UK, London Underground and railway workers can go on strike for fairer or additional pay. A TfL or Transport for London driver earns an average salary significantly higher than the UK average, 68,000 versus 48,000. The two jobs are broadly comparable, but TfL drivers leverage their location and the financial disruption they can cause to the capital, which is the centre of government, insurance, media, tourism, etc., to their advantage in negotiations. This is not to say that I think that TfL drivers are overpaid. More so, I think that other train drivers are underpaid. Another example, in terms of disparity in remuneration versus jobs that require similar qualifications, a teacher in Australia earns 95,000 Australian dollars per year, an accountant earns an average of 115,000 Australian dollars per year. More money, more troubles. Money can cause the concentration of wealth. Someone who is successful earns more and their wealth accumulates, whilst those individuals doing jobs with perceived lower value are forced to live day to day and cannot accumulate assets and improve their circumstances. People on lower incomes or with the inability to utilize money as a deferred payment method, equivalently borrowing money, are increasingly marginalized, whilst wealth continues to accumulate wealth, causing social inequality. It should be noticed that this process of wealth concentration is not done in a vacuum. Wealth inequality can be caused by more than just lower value employment. Wealth inequality can be caused by race, religion, gender, sexuality, and a host of other reasons. Where this happens, it generally does so in both directions. Societal inequality is often compounded by the increasing wealth inequality, and wealth inequality is compounded by societal inequality. A direct example of this would be redlining in the US from the 1920s onwards. This practice saw restricted lending for communities that had a perceived higher risk of default. It was not a coincidence that many of these higher risk communities were minority neighborhoods. This prevention on the federal level of credit led to these communities not being able to accumulate wealth, thereby limiting generational wealth and causing enormous social inequality over time. Money can replace purpose and humanity. Money can be prioritized over people. Creating shareholder value often takes precedent over the wishes or needs of customers, suppliers, employees, and the environment. The value system is distorted to favor the creation of money over the individual. Money is often an easy tag for individual value. An individual has more money, therefore their worth is greater than someone else's. Money, therefore, comes to represent an individual's value to society, not simply their ability to buy stuff. So, in summary, we need money to act as an independent intermediary in society where individuals have multiple and varying needs that would require excessive time and effort to negotiate on an individual basis. This is called a medium of exchange. We need money to establish the value of goods and services within a community. This function of money means we know that the goat is worth 5 blankets because we collectively say that it is, not because the goat herd barters better than the weaver. Consequently, we're not underselling our labour in the market and we're not paying too much for others. We need money as a method of deferred payment, whether this is obtaining a mortgage to buy a house, getting a student loan to gain a teaching qualification, or buying a pair of skinny jeans on your credit card. This deferred payment allows us as a society to think beyond the needs of today and into tomorrow. And we need money as a store of value to help larger individual and societal goals like buying a house or projects like building hospitals, to provide a cushion in an emergency and to give people greater options. Throughout this, we need to make sure that we don't confuse the measure of the value of money with the value of an individual. So that's it. Next time, we will look at the concept of commercial bank money, something you'll typically know as credit, how it is generated, and why.